much, and thanks for this opportunity to share some of my journey and my company's journey with you today. Hello. So who am I? I work for a company called Criterion. We are a video game developer based in Guildford. We're wholly owned by Electronic Arts. Making video games, certainly the type of blockbuster video games that we make, is a big, complex process that takes 3, 4, 5 years. Involves maybe 100, 200, 300, 400 people or more. They're a mix of creative and scientific people that all need to collaborate to create wonderful entertainment for people. I've been at Criterion for over 10 years, and you might ask, how do you fit into that organization? I could tell you what my job title is. I could say that I'm a senior producer. I can tell you that what a senior producer does, to borrow from Jack Dorsey, is edit the team, edit the money, edit the product. I can tell you also that maybe a producer does favors the player in managing scope and priority for our video games. And all of that's true. Those are things I do on a daily basis. But I think my real role has become to help the talented people who work at Criterion Games make sense of the world of work that they find themselves in. You could say, how do they become the best versions of themselves that they can be? As I say, I've been with Criterion for over 10 years, and through that time, we've had huge commercial success. We've had high-rated products that have been played by millions of people. But increasingly, it came at a huge cost to us as individuals. The pressure to deliver over time and to ever higher expectations started to take a huge toll on us as leaders. We had talented people who we knew were capable of making great decisions, but lacked context to enact the very issues that they were the experts on. And the pressure started to tell on us as individuals. And as that complexity of making video games escalated through the years, the cracks started to show. And actually our culture became toxic. The pressure on us to make decisions as leaders got to an unbearable point. And in November 2012, for me personally, it became too much. I walked into my manager's office and said, I can't do this anymore. I'm out of here. Fortunately for me, my company supported me through that. I had 3 months off with what later was diagnosed as stress-induced depression. And we were really at our lowest ebb as a studio at that point. Here is my good friend and colleague, Matt Webster, talking about what it felt like to be a leader during that period.
Exhausted and unfulfilled, and a questioning of your purpose. So for me, the purpose is to make amazing game experiences and to do it with a like-minded group of individuals. You can make wonderful things, and we weren't there. I think that it struck me that if we continued the way we were going, it was only going to be a matter of time before we killed someone. And that's not being dramatic. It was through poor practices and misguidance and just a general, things haven't changed to reflect our changing times. We were loading more and more stress onto people, and it was only going to be a matter of time before that stress reached a conclusion that would take someone to some very dark places. But I think it was innate within us that there was something bubbling, that there needed to be change. Just didn't know what it was.
So the opportunity for that change came about with a change of leadership and a change of mandate for us as a studio. Matt became general manager of Criterion, and we set about finding a new way. We were determined that we weren't going to repeat those mistakes of the past. To start with, we followed our instinct as we asked ourselves, who are we? We went back to our values. What do we really value? Why are we here? Why isn't it fun to make fun? And as we examined that as a group, I also had to go on a personal journey of who I was and what was my meaning. I certainly knew I couldn't be all things to all people, which is kind of what I was trying to do before and what had made me ill. I had to find my personal truth and meaning in that. So as we found the new way and we followed our instinct, we started to realize, as I discovered this book by Dan Pink, that science could actually back up what we were instinctively feeling was the right way to go. So the premise of Dan Pink's book is that there's a gap between what science knows and what business does when it comes to motivation and engagement. That once you pay people fairly, that's fairly versus the marketplace and fairly versus the people within their organization doing the same job, more money isn't going to make that person more motivated. Doesn't mean they don't want more money, everyone does. It just means that they won't be any more engaged or motivated once they get it. So if it's not that, what is it? And it turns out it's these three things. Autonomy, so the control, as far as is possible within the business parameters over what you do on a day-to-day basis. Mastery, the feeling that you're getting better at something you care about. And the one that really matters possibly more than ever is purpose. So the desire to attach your personal ideals to something bigger than yourself. We started to change everything about how Criterion operated around maximizing all three of these things for the talented people who worked at us. This is what we've learned so far. Our philosophy comes down to two major ideas. That's to treat our people as talent and to not accept harmful dogma. I could talk about all of these things at great length, but I'm just going to give you the headlines of how we implement our approach based on those principles and philosophy. So we treat people as talent means that we presume passion. We don't ask people to prove to us that they're passionate about their craft, passionate about their video game, about making video games. We assume that in them. If they're not, it will stand out like a sore thumb instantly anyway. But that whole framing of our relationship is that I assume that anyone who works at Criterion Games is a passionate, talented individual. To build a team, know a team. So far too often, we've seen just groups of people assembled because in theory and on paper, they have the right set of skills to knock over a certain problem that the business has. That is not how you build a team. So we have set out to understand our people at a very personal, individual level, but also in terms of their working preference and style. And we've built our space, in fact, around people's working preference and style. And we've fundamentally changed how we lead. We've entirely dropped command and control in favor of inspire and influence. And that is actually critical because who wants to be the guy at the top who's responsible for telling everyone what to do? That is not a tenable situation for a leader of any creative organization, and I would argue for any organization. What do we mean by no dogma? People-driven process. Every single process within Criterion is challengeable. It's there to serve the people, not the people to serve the process. Far too often I've seen people doing things because it's the way they are done without stopping to challenge if there's a better way that is more in service to the talented people inside the organization. Everything is challengeable within Criterion. As I've talked about, within parameters favor autonomy. So we talk about autonomy over team, task, and technique. So who I work with, what I work on, and how I work on it within the well-aligned priorities and budget of our studio. We push as much as we can down to the individual to take their personal responsibility about how they work within our studio. Goldilocks goals for mastery. So we know from the science that an engaged person in a state of flow moves towards mastery. The conditions to deliver flow actually are a Goldilocks goal. So not too cold, not too hot. It's too cold if I know I can do it. It's too hot if I know I can't do it. The skill for us is to collaboratively agree goals that are in that middle range in between, preferably as close to as I know I can't do it as possible. That's how people grow towards mastering something they care about. And this approach is working for us. We run an internal team health survey that typically scores over 90% in every category. And the last time we ran it, we had 100% of people saying they would recommend Criterion as somewhere to work. We've recently done an independently validated survey on our culture where we measured the cultural entropy within Criterion. The hygiene factors that stop your culture being efficient. A good score on that would be 10%. Criterion scored at 2%. So we feel like this is really working. Our attrition runs at 1.25%. Our people want to be in our company. So we're excited about who we are. We're not complacent about it. We know there's more to do. We have to work out how this goes at even larger scale and over long periods of time. And that's the work we're engaged in now. But it's been a very meaningful turnaround for us as individuals and as a team. What's all that got to do with you? You may very well ask. Because I think what you're here to do today is to ask yourself this question. Who are you? Who are you as individuals? And who are you as an organization? I believe you are not defined by your job title. I believe you're not defined as an organization by your charter. And I wonder if you're brave enough as individuals and as a group to go on that journey of self-discovery and embrace the inevitable vulnerability that will come with that. Because if you can, I believe you really can make a great difference out there. Because boy, do we need it right now. Our country, and I believe actually arguably our world, has never been crying out more for effective leadership and management. And I believe there's something fundamentally wrong with how we're doing it today. I believe there's people out there who deserve to be treated as talent, a mass of people who are crying out for human connection and absolutely desperate for purpose and meaning. And I'd love for you guys to provide some of that. Thank you very much.